You are listening to the Unsoberly Sober Show. I'm your host, Magnify Maggie. This podcast will turn your perception of going sober upside down. We're going to be working from the inside out to get you that dream life. So make sure you stick around for the end of the episode where I'm going to walk you through our weekly positive pursuit exercise to begin rewiring that beautiful mind, baby. Woohoo! What is happening, my free and powerful friends? I am super pumped about today's episode. It is all about being a recovering people pleaser. I think everybody by now, if you haven't been listening, you will know now, that my philosophy is that alcohol really is a tool. Any of your coping mechanisms that you use are tools to solve a problem. And what happens is a lot of times we don't understand what that problem is because our minds are just so quick to go to the helpful tool. Helpful in very big, large air quotes, helpful tool. And today, I'm going to talk about how it's just been deeper and deeper and deeper levels of awareness for me to see that alcohol really did help me be a people pleaser, to receive external validation. And what it really did for me was hide the anger that I had of putting myself last in order to please everyone else. So we're going to go with a little backstory. You know, I like to lay the foundation. Not a super fun backstory, but I feel like there's listeners that need to hear this. Sometimes I also just like to get these things off my chest to help explore my own journey here. So we talked about venting and the danger in complaining in a recent episode. And I want to go back to venting, but thinking about venting constructively. We mentioned the gratitude sandwich. If you feel like complaining, express a gratitude, then vent your ass off, but then come back to a gratitude so that you're not stuck in that complaining energy. I've been thinking a lot lately, though, about how I was unable in this certain period of my life, going through a lot of change, a lot of growth. I wasn't able to shake the complaining. And the things that I felt were really hard didn't feel any better after I expressed gratitude. And as I dug deeper into that, I was like, maybe this complaining is a signal that this situation isn't something worth fixing. Maybe this situation is something worth stepping away from pleasing that person and actually pleasing myself, actually listening to my gut instincts that say, this isn't the journey for you. This isn't someone who appreciates the things that you're doing for them. This isn't someone worth staking your own happiness for in order to make them happy. And I believe it was this sounding alarm that I couldn't get over this complaining. I couldn't get over this bad energy, this anger, which we're going to dig into. I couldn't get past this anger because I wasn't meant to. I was meant to listen to the anger. I was meant to finally stand up for myself and stop abandoning myself in order to please other people, and some people very specifically. Sometimes when we vent, and we do it in a constructive manner, hopefully always, but when we're practicing and getting better at the skill of productive and constructive expression of feelings, aka venting, we can sometimes stumble upon the real emotions that need to be validated, that need to be seen. And for me, that was anger. I grew up in an environment where anger was not welcome, where if you were angry, that made everything worse. And so my tool before I ever found alcohol became swallowing the anger, pretending like everything was wrong, or everything was right, pretending like everything was right, letting the elephant be in the room without ever looking it in the face, and then figuring out a way to make somebody feel happy because I was pleasing them which again is kind of contradictory to our last episode about, your happiness being found when making other people happy. There is that balancing act for it. But what I found over the past few months in really exploring this and getting more aware with my own personality coping mechanisms, my own personality adaptations, was that in the abnormal circumstances of not being able to express anger as a child at very obvious, appropriate angering experiences, I never learned that anger was okay. And so when things as an adult happen and people crossed my boundaries, people took me for granted, people used me, I was in toxic relationships before I found my husband, all of these things that anger would have been really appropriate for me to feel, for me to be able to step back and say, hey, you don't fit my life. You are not worthy of me. I would fight to please them and say, can I be worthy of you? How can I be worthy of you? And what happened over time was that anger was suppressed so deeply that not only people pleasing became my personality and my adaptation, but so did sadness and tears. I think back, I had this very vivid flashback on a walk recently, and this is really where all of the wheels started to turn. I thought back to my brother, Eric. Eric was my rock. He was the protector when my mom was in her abusive states of drinking. And I think about how solid he was in his emotions until he hit his tipping point. And there were only a few times in our childhood where I ever saw him cry. And it was in these moments of explosive rage. I'll never forget the way his face looked. He had somewhat like porcelain skin, but in his fits of rage, he turned as red as a fire truck. Not just his cheeks, his entire face, his entire neck, his hands, all of his skin, bright red. And he would have these pursed lips, like he was holding it all in. And the only thing that was coming out of him, no sound, no voice, just tears, just unstoppable waves of tears. And I remember after one of his fits of anger, or what appeared to be anger and sadness, I asked him, I said, Eric, I've never seen you cry before. And I don't know if he put a lot of thought behind this, but his automatic response was, I'm crying because I'm trying to hold the anger in and it hurts so bad. He went through the same experiences, probably 5 or 10 times worse because he was a little bit older, more mature. He also bore the brunt of it. But he, like me, learned that being angry was not safe. But after so much of swallowing the anger, his body couldn't handle it anymore. And so he would want to explode. He wouldn't let it explode, so he'd cry. And this light bulb went off in my mind of like, I've never had it to the point where I got so red and enraged, but maybe my mind just went straight to sadness because I was so sad about my life that I had to hold in that anger, that I couldn't talk about how angry I was at my mom or at the circumstances or at our life. And so I think my brain automatically made things that would normally be appropriate anger, made them feel sad because that was safer to express. That was safer to let go than the anger. And to this day, I've had so many conversations with myself, therapist, even with the Gabor Mate Compassionate Inquiry Program mentors. I'd be like, when are the tears going to stop? When are they going to stop? When am I going to stop being sad? And I was never able to find that answer in someone else, but I really do think that I've stumbled upon it, that the tears are not actually sadness. They're my coping mechanism to be able to suppress the anger, that my body doesn't feel safe in expressing appropriate anger. I go into people pleasing. And so my gut, myself, my soul knows that's not the right way to go. You're abandoning yourself. You're allowed to be angry at people if they're taking advantage of you. And I think a lot of people struggle with self-sabotage because we're always wondering, I wonder if I made that person mad. I wonder if I did the right thing. I wonder what they think about me. I know that I've loaned them money 18 times and I should probably just keep doing it because that'll make them like me more. And I'm just abandoning myself, but I'm going to keep trying to pour into them. Here's the sadness. I think that for most of us in that boat, we feel like if we expressed our appropriate anger, our lives would crumble. Going back to parts work, that part of me that developed to suppress the anger protected me. It kept me safe for a really long time. And now I don't even notice that it's anger. It goes straight to tears without me noticing the anger. And then here I am. Why am I always sad? Well, I'm always sad because I never let myself stand up for myself. I never let myself be autonomous. I never have the sense of confidence that if I stand up for myself and somebody doesn't like me, the world is not going to crumble around me. I will still survive. I will still make it. I think about the times that I got blackout. This was one of those same vivid flashbacks that came to mind when I thought about Eric's face in childhood. When I would drink, it was at first in the night, the first kind of symptom of the buzz was all of a sudden I felt safe to talk, which wasn't a thing as a kid. I wasn't safe to express feelings, maybe sadness, because that was normal. That's what I was always expressing. People would say, you're so sensitive, because I was crying all the time because I was angry. But at first when I drank, I felt safe to talk about things. So I would saddle up to a stranger and tell them my life story and buy them shots so that they would listen to me and try to people please and try to make these friends by the things that I did. Yeah, I'll take you out on the town. Let's do it. As long as you listen to my life story. And with strangers and friends, it was like, let's have these really deep heart-to-hearts. But then as the night progressed and I went home with husband, or I went home when I was living with my parents at age 23. I went home to live with my dad and stepmom, and I would go home at the end of the night drinking, and my dad would be sitting there to make sure I got to bed okay. Any of these experiences where it was people that I was extremely close with, that I knew would love me no matter what, I would let this rage out that I didn't know I was capable of. I would probably, if there were pictures of it, I was probably red in the face like Eric was, just waves of tears coming out of my eyes, screaming. I remember hammer fisting my dad in the chest because I was so angry about Eric. I was so angry about my mom. I was so angry about my life. But it wasn't until all of my inhibitions had dropped with alcohol that I was able to let that shit out of me, let that toxic force out of me. So then, wouldn't it make sense that alcohol was a pretty good tool, not in the healthiest way, but it was a good tool to get that anger out of me? I didn't know how to do it consciously. I didn't know how to do it with a sober head. In fact, if I ever thought about doing that, talking about my anger in a sober state, few and far between at that point, that scared the shit out of me because, oh my God, what would people think about me? They probably think that I just want to be a victim and I just want their pity and I just don't want people to feel sorry for me. Hey, that's probably not going to be their perception they're probably going to lend you an ear, right? But I was so afraid that I couldn't please somebody if I voiced my anger that I kept suppressing it. And then alcohol helped me finally physically release that. It wasn't very healing because I didn't remember it. I don't remember those instances for the most part, but it did its job at that time in my life. So when we look at the tools that we use in self-sabotage, whether it's behavior or actual substances, it's like we have to learn what it's actually doing for us. And I think for a long time, even in my sobriety, like 2020 to 2023, it just started kind of opening my eyes this last year, past few months especially. I didn't realize that the anger was there. I thought it was all sadness. And now I'm able to continue peeling that onion back and realize the sadness is there. It's almost like this like string of causation, right? It was alcohol that helped me express my sadness. My sadness was helping me cover the anger. And if I couldn't ever get to the fact that alcohol was doing something for me, and then that it was doing this thing to help me with sadness, and then that the sadness was there for the anger, I would be frustrated and totally ignorant to the fact of why am I drinking? And then in your sobriety, in your time away from the self-sabotage, whatever that coping mechanism is, realizing that you don't have to please everybody. You don't have to be perfect for everybody. You don't have to live your life in these parameters around what other people think about you. You're able to get to the bottom of it. And I'm sure I'm going to have more revelations about that anger being cued by something else. But if I were still confused as to why I drank alcohol or why I needed to people please, if I was still confused about that, I would never get to this next step. And so I just want to kind of wish you all the strength to keep exploring. You have to get to know yourself on such a deep level to understand why you are doing the things that you're doing. I used to think that I was just somebody who was really loving and caring. That's why I want to please everybody. But actually being loving and caring sometimes caused me to be resentful of those people. So it wasn't actually coming from a place of love or care. It was coming from that as an adaptation to be something for them to fill this hole that I have. And so being angry, being sad is appropriate. Don't be afraid of those emotions. The more afraid you are of them, the more you're going to suppress them. It's not like, I don't like being sad, so I'll never be sad. Because things are going to make you sad. I don't like being angry, so I'm never going to be angry. You need to be angry sometimes. That's a natural, functional, necessary emotion. But if you suppress the shit out of it, no wonder you're going to lean into things. No wonder your mind is going to look for ways to ease that pain of suppressing it. This is such an interesting topic that it is now being studied as the polyvagal theory. And I'm not going to dive into all of the mechanics behind the polyvagal theory. You can look up parasympathetic nervous system, sympathetic nervous system, dorsal. You can look up all of these different aspects of the polyvagal theory. But what I want to bring today is the physical manifestation of emotions, something that I've been practicing that has been helping the tears stop because I'm actually getting to the root cause. Also helping the people pleasing beyond my capability stop. I'm able to draw boundaries. And that is being able to scream. So there's something in the polyvagal theory that talks about the audible sigh, the audible gasp, the audible, any kind of way that you're vibrating through your vocal cords and letting these grunts out. This is a fantastic piece of physiology and psychology that now I let myself yell. I will let the anger out. And what I found is that the anger is always from a behavior where I was abandoning myself and people pleasing for others, abandoning my gut intuition of like, hey, this person, they've given you all the red flags that they don't appreciate all of your people pleasing. In fact, you're now probably being used, waking up in the middle of the night saying, oh, I can't believe this person doesn't love me. Look at all the things I've done for them. Oh, now I'm crying. The crying is because I was angry. And so what I do, I'm going to sit back a little bit from the mic, but what I do is I literally just close my eyes and I go, oh. And if one doesn't work, you do it a few times. Oh. Let your head go back, chin go out, kind of relax your neck, but let the air pass over your vocal cords to the point that it does sound like a grunt or even a scream. If you need to grab a pillow, scream into the pillow. If it's not appropriate to scream in your house, everybody be like, what's going on? But literally part of my daily exercises for mindset, especially when I notice, oh, I just abandoned myself to please somebody. I just abandoned my needs to make somebody else happy. There's no backing out of that. Let me let this anger go before it's bottled up and explosive. I'll sit back. Ah! I literally let my throat feel full of my own voice. And I am getting that shit out of my body. So look up the audible grunt under polyvagal theory and understand that that is something, sounds a little bit caveman, but I think that's probably because of our own evolution, that it literally can sweep out anxiety. It can put you in that relaxed rest and digest state for your nervous system. This does so much for you. I notice if I've got anger, my hands start to sweat. They even start to tremble a little bit. My stomach will feel upset. My chest will feel heavy. When I start paying attention to these body feelings, remember the body is the instrument of the mind. It's telling you what needs to be done. I sit back. Sometimes I'll go outside. Sometimes I'll go for a hike and do this on top of a fucking mountain, and it feels great. You just literally set your shoulders back, palms face forward. You even put your hands out in the air, head goes back. Big deep breath in through your nose. Ah! Feel it in your chest, in your stomach. Let your stomach completely contract, your diaphragm completely contract until you feel like there is nothing left inside of your torso, nothing left inside of your chest cavity, because that's where your body is housing things. If you constantly have indigestion, if you have a heavy chest, maybe even heart problems, if your heart rate variability is through the fucking roof, or rather really low, your resting heart rate is really high, that's all the physical manifestation of these emotions being locked up in this beautiful body, and you got to let that shit out. And so let yourself scream. Let yourself express the anger. And as you do this, you will communicate to your mind that that part of you that protected you from expressing it, whether it was the sadness like me, the people pleasing, using a substance, it'll communicate to your mind that the job is done. You don't have to work to protect me from the anger anymore. I'm actually a whole ass adult, and I can have hard conversations and express my self-worth to people so that I draw my boundaries and I don't have to keep being angry at myself for putting myself last and putting others first to receive their love or their validation. If we are always needing to please others, I can bet lots of money that it's because you are not pleased with yourself. And there can be a whole slew of reasons, but I know for a lot of us, for me very specifically, I was not pleased with myself because I was always abandoning my own needs in order to make others happy. That might look like abandoning your needs to eat. If you're like, hey, I need to eat breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and somebody's like, hey, I need you to run this errand. Well, I'll just not eat. I'm going to go run this errand instead of being like, hey, of course, I would love to help you out, but I actually need to, I'm about to go to lunch real quick. So after I go to lunch, I can do that. So there's really small ways that this plays out. It could be abandoning your need to clean your house because somebody asked you to come over and help them clean theirs. It could be abandoning your needs to go after a promotion. Maybe you need to get a new job because you hate your life and you hate the 9 to 5 and you hate your daily tasks, but you want to continue to please your boss. You want to continue to meet the needs of everybody on the team, but inside your soul is screaming like, I don't want to be here. I'm angry that you're making me come to this job every day when I know it would make me really happy to be in this other field or this other company or working for myself. You continue to put yourself last in a variety of ways. Your soul is screaming and you're like, shut up. I'm going to listen to everybody else and make them happy. I'm not going to make myself happy. And so that's a good place to start too. Making a list. Now that your mind is aware of like, let me listen to all the times I tell myself to shut up in order to make other people happy. Make that list. Reach out if you need help navigating how to change those things. For me, I had to grow some balls for real. Like I had to be like, you are an adult. You can speak your mind. And if somebody doesn't like you, that's okay. Not everybody's going to like you. In fact, if everybody likes you, you probably hate yourself. You're not doing a very good job of taking care of yourself. Another one is like not going to the gym on Friday or Saturday because people are like, hey, we would love to see you at the bar. That might be more entry level for, a lot of the new listeners. Maybe that's how you're abandoning yourself all the time. So make a list of those things. And then the exercise for the week, just scream your ass off. Scream on a daily basis, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. When you wake up and maybe before you go to bed, scream until your voice is raspy. Because if you resonate with this episode, there's probably a shit ton of anger all kept bottled up in that cavity of yours, maybe even down to your knees and your toes now. And so you got to let yourself express it. So start with the audible grunts. If you notice that you're in a state of anger and you do 3 to 5 of those breaths, you will automatically feel your physiological manifestations of that start to dissipate. Like if I'm in that state and I just do 3 to 5 of those, I automatically feel my heart rate come down. My hands are less clammy. If I keep going, then they get all dried up and I'm like, oh, cool, got that out of me. Sometimes I'll even add a shake, like a little relaxed wrist shimmy. Do that for my feet as well. If I feel that energy just exploding inside of me, I'll add that to my polyvagal audible grunts. So 3 to 5 of those. If you have a lot of shit all bottled up in there, do some screaming too. I have a little special room in my house where I go if I have a lot, and I have a pillow and I'll just put it up and I'll scream at the top of my lungs. Sometimes then I'll throw the pillow too, just kind of like, it's like a rage room in my house, I mentioned I'll go outside. I'll do it outside so that I'm in Mother Nature with the perfect vibration to recalibrate my baseline. Once I get that shit out of me, you can never really find gratitude, authentic gratitude, if you don't get it out. And I think that's what venting does if we can do it correctly. But if we aren't venting constructively, then we just keep talking about it. And then we're like, I'm going to go think about what I'm grateful for and be like, dang it, why don't I feel better? Because you're not actually doing it in a constructive way and you're not actually expressing that energy. Put that energy in motion. Move your body. Go for a walk and scream in the woods. Scream in your car. Scream as you're walking outside the gym. I'll walk outside the gym sometimes. I don't give a fuck if somebody is in the parking lot. I'll just be like, ah. They can think crazy about me. That's also helped me realize that, hey, stop caring what people think about you, Miss People Pleaser. Stop carrying that with you and making it your responsibility to have everybody around you like you. That's not your responsibility. You're never going to be able to control everybody's perception and perspective. So do what's going to help you feel good. Scream on a daily basis. So I think this is also something that take along with it as you're screaming. Be aware of your anger and when you swallow it. Like I said, take a little note. Have a little handy dandy notebook in your pocket. Have your notes app ready. Take a note of every time you swallow your anger. What you're going to find is that it's a lot of small things in your mind, a lot of small things. But these things add up, especially if we've been doing it for years and years and years. And it was kind of the adaptation built off of childhood experiences that were really big. The little things kind of have to come up first in order to really pull the big things out. So be aware of your anger and when you swallow it. Why do you swallow it? Are you afraid someone won't like you? Is that okay? Also, do you know that they won't like you? What if they say, wow, thank you for drawing that boundary. I never knew I was doing that to you. Thank you for bringing that up. Thank you for loving me enough to have that conversation instead of just continuing to abandon yourself. What if they actually respond in kind? Are you afraid that you won't be able to come back from that anger? I think a lot of my perception of anger as a kid was like, once I'm angry and I let that out, I'm going to be angry forever. I don't want to be an angry person. I want to be a nice person. Understand that emotions, they come and go like waves. You got to let that out and you're going to come back. It's going to get better. In fact, your better will be improved because you're not carrying that around with you anymore. So don't be afraid to be angry thinking that it's going to be permanent. This too shall pass. Let that shit out of you. It's toxic. Notice these things, scream like a banshee, and then make a list of gratitudes to get you back to that regulated baseline. Again, I know that that's hard when we're just coming out of that anger, but you don't want that to be permanent. You don't want that emotional carryover to start shading all of the good things in your life. And this is where I see regret in my perspective is like the anger that I was never able to get past, that I was never really even able to recognize in my soul, that was masked by tears and then people pleasing and then alcohol. I never really realized that it was keeping me from enjoying beautiful things because my mind said, oh, you've got this anger. Now, even the most beautiful things that happen outside of you, we're going to look at them through the lens of anger. And I would pick out the negative things, the negative aspects, things to be angry about these circumstances. I could have been given $1 million, but my emotional carryover from the anger I was with forever would have said, why not 2 million? Why do you just give me 1 million? Why, when they gave it to me, did they say they think I really deserve this? Was that some kind of shit talking? You know, I found a way to make everything bad because I wasn't able to recognize or express the anger and get it out of me so that then I was grateful. So that's something that I do regret in my life, of like letting so many good things go bad because of my perspective on it, because of the emotions I was carrying. I never really understood projection. People would be like, oh, you're not really angry at me. You're angry because of these things in your life. And I was like, in my mind, I was like, no, I'm really logically angry at you for this thing. You did this. But it wasn't true. It really was projection. And now, anytime I have an emotional reaction to somebody else, I'm like, what am I projecting here? What am I doing? So you get really aware of this. Sometimes that hurts more than it helps at first. But when you start to realize that, you realize that you really are driving the bus. You are in control. So with that being said, go scream your ass off. Go let the anger out. If it's tears as well, let them out. Don't grab the Kleenex. Don't wipe your face. Let them out. They will come as waves. You might even notice when you go exercise, right after you exercise, that's when you have these waves of emotion. That's because your body is doing what it's supposed to be doing. It's flushing in happy hormones to detoxify the negative hormones, the sadness. And so sometimes there's just so much of that built up that it has to come out. And so you might say, I just did something really healthy. Why now am I crying? Why now am I needing to scream? It's your body actually detoxifying all of the negative bullshit that's been trapped within. So don't be afraid of the emotions. In fact, thank the emotions. They are telling you something. They are telling you which direction to go. They're telling you the steps to take. They are signaling to you what would really make you happy. And don't sit in them too long. Don't stew in it. Don't talk about it for months and months on end without doing anything. Feel them, figure out a way to physically express them, and then get in tune with what you're grateful for, the things that you love in your life. Don't be an ungrateful person. Tap into that gratitude, because all in all, outside of tragedy and unfair circumstances and truly being victimized, we live in America. We have beautiful lives. We have so much opportunity. Most of our problems are first world problems. So tune into that, get yourself in line with gratitude, and I guarantee you will feel better. But if you're stumbling along the way, you know how to reach me. I am here. I love being able to put out these free, accessible lessons. Hopefully they're making a really big impact in your life. Please let me know if they are, if they're not. But if you're stumbling along the way, know that there's help. You don't have to do this on your own. In fact, that's a really big misconception that you should do it on your own. Having somebody by your side to hold you accountable to doing these things and checking in on you and caring about you, it can completely change the game. Things that you've been struggling with for decades or years or months, they can be solved sometimes within just one conversation or 1 month or 2 months working with somebody that cares and has these strategies and will hold you accountable to them. So with that being said, please reach out. You know where to find me on Instagram, Magnify Maggie, on YouTube, Magnify Maggie channel, ? And my email is in the description of this episode. I would love to hear your thoughts, your needs, your concerns, your feedback, all of the above. Remember, you are free and powerful. You are badass. Remember, think different to drink different, or never again. Until next time. See you later. It means the entire world to me that you have been here with me, letting me share my experiences and hopefully helping open your eyes to a bright, beautiful life ahead of you as well. So if you are loving this show, please, please, please subscribe, like, comment, and especially share this with somebody that might be in need. Please help get the word out. Word of mouth is so important. And I know that you're somebody special who can help me in this mission for thinking differently in order to drink differently or never again. Make sure you reach out if you have any questions you want discussed on the podcast. I'm here for it. So I'll talk to you soon. Signing out, Magnify Maggie.